The film opens inside a dark, silent house. Indy, a Nova Scotia duck-tolling retriever, wakes from his nap when he hears something unusual. His owner, Todd, suddenly starts dripping blood from his mouth, sending Indy into panic. Moments later, Todd's sister Vera rushes in and immediately calls for help.
Help, I need an ambulance. My brother isn't breathing. Oh, I just found him like this. Something is really wrong.
Old footage plays, showing Indy as a playful puppy, growing alongside Todd through the years. Now, Vera and Indy are there to welcome Todd home after being discharged from the hospital. Rain pours heavily as Todd drives deep into the woods, with his loyal dog Indy by his side. The road ahead is blocked by a massive metal chain, the only way through locked tight. Todd gets out in the downpour, trying to find a way to break it. Grabbing a tool and his phone, he tells Indy to stay still inside the car, then heads out again to keep working on the stubborn chain.
Found him.
Later, Todd takes Indy to his late grandfather's old country house upstate. When they arrive, the house looks abandoned, wrapped in silence and decay. Indy hesitates at the door, sensing something off. Todd gently coaxes him inside. The dog moves cautiously through the dim hallway and freezes. That night, Todd sits alone, watching old home movies of his grandfather and his golden retriever, Bandit. The flickering images fill the dark room as Indy watches beside him, uneasy, as if something unseen still lingers in the house. In a flash of lightning, a shadow appears. Someone seems to be watching them from behind the white door. Instinct takes over, and Indy begins to explore, padding nervously through cluttered rooms filled with dust and forgotten belongings. A faint noise from upstairs catches his attention. Indy slowly climbs the creaking steps and enters a room stacked with strange antique objects. Nothing seems out of place until another sound makes him turn back. In the corner, half hidden in darkness, a tall, shadowy figure stands still, staring straight at him. When the beam of light sweeps across the room, the dark figure vanishes without a trace, leaving only silence and Indy trembling with unease. The next morning, Todd decides to take Indy for a walk through the woods behind the house. They pass an overgrown family cemetery. As Indy sniffs around, a man in a black bodysuit suddenly appears among the trees. Todd quickly confronts him, but the stranger introduces himself as Richard, a neighbor who once knew Todd's grandfather. Before leaving, Richard warns Todd to be careful. He set up fox traps all over the woods. As Todd talks with Richard, Indy notices a hollow tree nearby. Curious, he peeks inside, only to see a pair of glowing eyes staring at him from the darkness. After their walk in the woods, Todd and Indy return to the old house. Vera calls again, asking how things have been after 2 days there, and whether Indy has seen anything strange. Todd avoids the question, quickly ends the call, and steps out of the car. On the porch, he starts the generator. Indy suddenly notices something moving deep in the forest, but Todd calms him, saying it's nothing. Night falls again. After a long day, Todd and Indy head to bed. Todd says goodnight as Indy curls up at his feet and drifts off. But that night, Indy dreams of standing in a pitch-black room. Footsteps echo all around, and the camera lingers on his eyes, filled with fear. He wakes suddenly, trembling, while Todd coughs violently beside him. As morning comes, Indy paces nervously in front of a closed door. Beneath the door, scratch marks are etched deep into the floorboards. Todd feeds Indy, grabs his jacket, and leaves in a hurry. The moment the door closes, Indy starts barking frantically at it. He jumps on a chair by the window, barking again, terrified, but Todd is already gone. The poor dog waits by the window all day, watching for Todd to return. Hours pass and darkness falls outside, yet Indy doesn't move. He keeps his eyes fixed on the window until a strange noise comes from the floor vent. Suddenly, Indy sees another dog rush past, one that looks exactly like him. It's Bandit, the retriever who once lived in this house. Bandit sprints up the stairs, leaving Indy frozen in confusion. Indy follows, but when he reaches the top, the hallway is empty. In the corner, a wardrobe catches his eye. There's a narrow gap beneath it. Indy crouches and peers inside, spotting a scarf, one he remembers Bandit wearing in the old footage. He squeezes closer, reaching for the scarf. But the moment his paw touches the fabric, a horrifying vision flashes before him. Darkness stretching across the room, the scarf soaked in blood as it falls to the floor. Terrified, Indy bolts and hides under the bed. From the stairwell, a dark shape slowly climbs upward. Indy trembles, ready to flee, until he realizes it's just Todd, finally home, weak and exhausted. Todd walks slowly to the bed and lies down. Hearing his familiar breathing, Indy cautiously comes out of hiding. But something about Todd feels different now. His temper snaps easily. When Indy approaches for comfort, Todd yells and drives him away from the bed. The loyal dog quietly retreats, curling up on the floor at his owner's feet, too afraid to sleep yet unwilling to leave his side. The nightmare returns. Indy dreams he's walking through the same graveyard he once visited with Todd. The air is cold, the soil wet beneath his paws. From the mist, a massive black shadow rises and moves towards him. Indy jolts awake, heart racing, and notices muddy footprints leading under the house. Shaking but determined, he follows the trail to the living room, stopping before the same basement door that had unsettled him before. What he sees freezes him in place. Todd, half conscious, slamming his own head against the door until blood runs down his face. Indy whines and nudges him, trying to make him stop. Todd suddenly snaps out of it, acting as if nothing happened, checks the basement door, and quietly walks upstairs.
By morning, Todd's condition worsens. When the phone rings, Todd ignores it, and Indy begins pacing restlessly near the stairway. The side room door creaks open on its own, as if inviting him in. Indy steps inside. The room is filled with dusty furniture and forgotten junk. He sniffs around and pushes into a smaller back room before returning. In one corner sits an old single sofa. Something about it feels wrong. Indy stares, and suddenly everything blurs. He starts to hallucinate, seeing himself as Bandit, the dog from the past. On the sofa sits Todd's grandfather, coughing violently under dim light. Blood pours from the old man's mouth as he convulses. Indy trembles in terror. Outside the room, heavy footsteps climb the stairs, followed by the faint drip of blood. He senses a hand sliding along the railing. Overwhelmed, Indy panics and urinates where he stands before fleeing in blind fear, hiding somewhere in the house. When Todd finally finds him, Indy is drenched in mud, trembling behind the basement door. While Todd bathes Indy, he suddenly starts coughing violently. Blood sprays from his mouth, splattering onto the white tub and over Indy's fur until everything turns red. Todd panics and rinses the dog quickly, not wanting him to see the mess. At his next checkup, Todd brings Indy along. After the examination, the doctor delivers grim news. His condition is getting worse. Indy squirms in Todd's arms, and when Todd tries to hold him still, frustration erupts. He sets Indy down roughly, his face twisted and distorted, almost unrecognizable to the loyal dog. Back home, Todd digs something in the yard when the neighbor appears again. They exchange brief small talk, the man reminding Todd to watch out for fox traps before hurrying away. Since returning from the hospital, Todd's behavior has grown strange. He fills the house with potted plants, candles, and wind chimes that ring softly through the night. As the faint light flickers, Indy notices a figure beside the candle, a mud-covered man, the same one he saw in the storage room. Later that night, Indy lies awake on the floor, staring toward the window. A black shadow darts across the room. Startled, he chases it to the living room where the basement door suddenly creaks open. A dim light reveals someone lying at the bottom of the stairs. The bulb flickers, and in the next flash, the shadow rushes toward him. Indy jolts awake beneath the bed. It was only a nightmare, But then a hand reaches out from the darkness and grabs him. He yelps in terror, only to realize it's Todd, who has fallen from the bed. Todd hugs Indy tightly, trying to calm him. For a moment, peace returns, until a cold, unfamiliar hand touches the back of Indy's head. Sensing danger, Indy panics and bites Todd's hand hard. Todd falls backward, shouting in pain. Shocked by what he'd done, he hesitates, wanting to check if his owner is okay. But Todd blocks him, clutching his arm as he steps out of the room. Under the dim light, he realizes the blood on his hand isn't his. It's dripping from the dark shape perched above the wardrobe. Todd collapses violently to the floor in front of Indy, who whimpers and tries to reach him. Suddenly, the door slams shut, trapping Indy inside. Frantic, he searches for an exit, darts into the bathroom, and spots a window. Gathering courage, he leaps out and hits the ground hard before sprinting into the forest, desperate to find help for Todd. But his run ends abruptly. His leg snaps into a fox trap hidden in the mud. Indy struggles and howls in pain. From the trees, the shadow slowly approaches. Its outline grows larger, closer, until everything fades to black, and Indy falls unconscious. Todd later finds Indy in the woods and brings him home furious at what happened. As punishment, he chains the dog outside by the old doghouse. Rain begins to fall again as Indy sits shivering, watching the faint light flicker through the house windows. Inside, Todd starts coughing violently, blood spilling from his mouth once more. Indy senses the same dark presence moving through the rooms. Suddenly, the doghouse rattles. Indy pulls hard, the chain snapping loose. He bolts toward the house, slipping through the cellar door. The air inside is thick and cold. In the shadows, Indy discovers a pile of bones, bandits' remains long hidden beneath the floor. He races upstairs and finds Todd's spirit stands beside his own body, staring in disbelief. The entity emerges from the darkness, reaching for him. Indy barks and leaps forward to protect his owner, but Todd looks down at him gently. He kneels, realizing his time is over, and whispers to Indy, "You're a good dog." As the entity drags him toward the cellar, Todd's skin begins to peel away like ash, his voice fading, while Indy howls desperately, trying to pull him back. The darkness swallows them both. By morning, Vera arrives at the house. She finds Todd's lifeless body and, trembling, opens the cellar door. Inside, she discovers Indy sitting quietly beside Bandit's skeleton, his fur matted with dust and tears. When Vera softly calls his name, Indy lifts his head. He hears Todd's faint whistle echoing one last time. After a pause, Indy runs toward Vera and leads him away from the haunted house as the morning light breaks through the trees.